Hey guys, and welcome back to NTom and Volk's Spot of PC. For the last of this week's sesh, we're going to be taking a look at Steredenn, which is a roguelike shoot-em-up. And I says to Volk, I says to him, mate, we can't have more than one of the same type of genre in any given Spot of PC sesh. And he says back to me, don't worry Tom, it's more shmup, that is, shoot 'em up, than it is roguelike. So I'm expecting good things from this. The graphical style is already winning me over, but I've heard tell that it plays well, and oh my god, it's got some kick-ass music to boot.
Ah yes, the music was the first draw for me. It's just the minute you get in, it just hits you with heavy hitting gent metal, and it's a great way to get you started on this space adventure, which pretty much starts off with your flagship getting blown up and you escaping from the wreckage to take on the forces of evil head-on.
Ah, but here's the thing though. Any game can have a strong opening. Does it continue that all the way to the credits?
I would say so, yes, although I have to admit I haven't actually seen the credits yet because this game is balls to the walls hard.
Yeah, it looks it.
And this game has some rather crazy enemies as well, like literal chainsaw ships that chase after you.
Yeah, seems like a waste of budget in my opinion, but oh well, boss time already I suppose.
Yeah, the first level's pretty short in terms of, I guess, filler. And for the first few boss fights in particular, usually you come across a selection of 4 at the start, then 3 and then 2, so the bosses are semi-random to begin with, but when you get to the more hardcore bosses, they tend to take on one form, and that form will be hell-bent on kicking your ass for all it's worth.
Well, that's a shmup for you, mate. Oh, I almost forgot. Steredenn was developed by Pixel Nest Studio, and I'm not really sure if they've made anything else. This is the first time I'm hearing of them.
To my knowledge, they haven't made anything else yet, but whether or not they are working on something else, or whether they have something in the pipeline already, I don't have knowledge of it. But as far as I'm concerned, this is the only game that they've done, but they do it very damn well.
Yeah, hell of a debut. Like, you know what I mean, mate? I tend to, I guess, overly criticize indies going for fucking pixel graphics over and over, but man, does this just take that aesthetic and just fucking roll with it. It is unashamedly retro with modern sensibilities.
That is absolutely right, and I think we mentioned it before in other Spot of PCs where we cover pixel art games, is that yes, it may be a little overdone or I guess safe, but the important thing is more that you get it right rather than just sort of haphazardly do it and it kind of just looks like garbage.
Yeah.
So I was saying that the roguelike elements in this game are basically sub to the shoot 'em up aspects. And the reason for that is that the only real roguelike elements are that the levels themselves are random. So you're not going to get like this exact same level layout every time you come in.
Okay.
There are various seeds that you can play which do have the same layout. So if you do prefer to sort of have a same experience as you would if you were playing something like R-Type or Gradius, then that option is open to you. But for the most part, Starid-N thrives on it being random and relying more on your raw shooting skills as opposed to just sort of memorizing all the patterns and such and going through the motions.
Oh my god, this music, I need this OST fucking stat, mate.
Well, I can tell you the soundtrack itself was composed by someone called Xander Noriga. I'm not entirely sure what other music he's done, but basically this was my introduction to him. And I have this soundtrack on my MP3 player, and I do listen to it on occasion alongside the Tekken 7 and Dissidia Arcade soundtrack that I currently have on there at this minute.
Nice.
So this is the second boss we got now. As you might be able to notice, he likes his corridor shenanigans.
Oh,
but
that he does.
It is theoretically possible to actually get up behind him and pelt him with homing missiles. So there are multiple ways to be able to defeat all these bosses depending on what kind of items you pick up. So generally speaking, you can kill just about anything in this game with the blaster if you're skilled enough, but of course you will find items that just makes the whole affair much easier. So the homing missiles will allow you to basically get behind an enemy's blind spot and just pelt them with missiles, or robots can do a similar thing. Or you could just find a giant laser and, you know, just point it directly in the face and melt him.
That would be my preferred strategy. Honestly, yeah, shoot them all and let Space God sort them out.
One weapon that, whilst I didn't get on this particular playthrough, I did actually get on my live stream. And you do actually have access to melee weapons, or as they are known in here as contact weapons. And they allow you to basically equip your ship with a giant circular saw, a drill, a set of metal jaws, or my personal favourite, the sword.
Nice.
So you can literally just go up to bosses and just stab them to death. It is the most amazing spectacle you'll ever see. So that's probably one of the first things I'll encourage people to do when they get this game. Find a sword and be amazed.
Well, it works on a psychological level as well, because if the fucking Enterprise went to attack some Klingon, like, what is it, Birds of War or whatever, and he had a giant sword strapped to the front, like, fuck it, we can't outsmart Picard, let's outduel him. And it came towards me with like a rapier on the end, I'd be like, fuck this shit, I'm going back to the Federation.
Well, I kind of feel the same way if you're sort of seeing all this coming at you, and some of the ships were carrying giant chainsaws at the front of them. I'll just be like, I did not want this today, I'm just going to go home. But, you know, Steredenn isn't exactly one to do things traditionally.
Oh, it's made of heavy metal.
Much like the soundtrack.
Oh yes. Whoa, okay. Getting a bit Ikaruga up in here.
Yeah, I mean, all these bosses do have patterns that you can figure out, although some patterns are a lot harder to master than others.
Yeah,
this one's pretty easy because, you know, it's got the homing ring thing. It's all about trial and error of the bosses. You can't necessarily do that with the levels themselves. You have to really think on your feet with those. But for the bosses, you kind of just have to learn them as you go along, and eventually you'll be able to take them on with just your blaster.
This seems like tricky but doable, this boss in particular.
Oh yeah, it certainly has its quirks, like this homing bullshit right here. And one thing you tend to learn in this game is that you're not necessarily going to be able to fire at all times. Sometimes you gotta wait for your opening. So whether that's just waiting for this cycle to finish so you can get a good attack in at the front, or just running circles around him with the homing missiles, you kind of learn sort of where your windows of attack are, depending on what sort of items you're using.
Hang on, does this mean the Doomsday Zone Sonic 3 and Knuckles was technically part shmup? Because you are, like, racing side-on to basically take down a spaceship, dodging stuff along the way.
I guess in a way it is, although there's no Master Emerald at the end of it, although there is a giant mothership that you get to fight. I haven't actually seen it yet, but I've seen the silhouette and it looks immense.
Well, thanks for sandbagging my crappy joke back there. That's pretty much all it deserves, honestly.
You know, I acknowledge only the finest jokes.
Away we go!
You're gonna see some serious shit.
Oh man, these space backgrounds.
Oh yeah, they did a good job with these. One thing they also add in this game is sometimes you'll occasionally have things like this, where there's a specific hazard that you have to deal with. So in this case, it's mines.
Yeah, Area 6 from Star Fox 64, essentially.
Pretty much, although you get like meteor showers, you know, ion fields and things like that. And depending on the overall difficulty of the hazard you're dealing with, you do actually get an extra bonus to your score. So of course, if you want the high scoring affairs, you want to try and find your way for as many of these as possible.
Oh my god, I think I'm in love with this game, to be honest.
It's one of those games that is incredibly difficult, but it's oh so rewarding. You just feel like a badass when you go through here. I think it's mostly the soundtrack that helps with that.
Oh wow, you know how big of a proponent of video game music I am, mate. If it's amazing, it can bump up an already fantastic game to higher levels. But if it's bad, it can drag down a mediocre game to even depthier depths, as it were. Sorry, not on my grammar A game today, it seems.
That's fair enough. Just say you were distracted by the awesome music. That seems to work for me.
Oh yeah. Oh jeez.
They throw a lot of shit at you towards the end, and towards the end of this video in particular, I actually got further than I had ever gotten in this game before, so I was running into a bunch of stuff I had never actually seen before, so I had to improvise quite heavily for those, and it ranged from being relatively successful to an absolute disaster that pretty much cost me my life.
Wow, bit over-dramatic, don't you think? It's just a video game.
I guess so, but you know, this game has a flair for the dramatic.
So are these just regular enemies or a boss?
Those are regular enemies. The enemies themselves do get more health as you go on, but those guys like to push you into all sorts of obstacles.
Nice to meet you. What a boss subtitle.
Well, at least he's polite about it. And I completely forgot that asteroid was there. I was more thinking, oh look, an opening! Wait, what's that? Boom. Whoops. This was about as far as I got when I was live streaming this game initially, so this was where I died before, but at this point I'd actually surpassed it, which was where I thought, okay, this will be the run that makes it onto Spotter PC.
Oh, this is the run.
To earn, as it were.
So tell me a little bit about the story of Starid-N, mate. 'Cause you mentioned, like, your mothership or whatever got blown up, but why exactly? Why would someone do such a thing?
Because they're bad guys that want to take over the world. It's not really much in terms of innovative plot points, but, you know, you don't really need much when it comes to a game like this where you're literally just going around blasting everything that moves and is a different colour to you.
Yeah, not really. You don't really need, like, say Mario, for example. Like, I like the stories in, you know, 3D Mario games, for lack of a better term, but if they're good, it makes an already good game even better. You know, it's just like music in that regard.
Exactly, and I think usually for these sort of games, the gameplay generally speaks for itself.
Yeah.
Like, you don't really think about the story after a point, you just think, yeah, I'm just here to have fun, blast things to Kingdom Come, and just generally feel awesome whilst going through space. So, we're dicing it a bit close here. I'm on incredibly low health.
Oh my god, I didn't even notice that.
You can tell things were getting a bit tense, and at this point I let out a very audible celebration.
Oh.
Although you don't quite catch it here, because usually I have my microphone off for these sessions, as it makes sense.
Well, you got a screen recorder, don't you?
I did once toy with the idea of maybe just having Audacity running in the background and including like moments of hype in the background, but then I thought, I don't know, it might detract a bit too much about what Spotter PC is about.
Yeah, it's just like us talking and then very inaudibly in the background, woo!
Yeah! Although it would be quite funny.
It would, oh my god. Things are going extremely bad already. Why would someone install laser cannons on meteors? It just seems like a waste of money, really.
I don't know, and it's a productive use of an otherwise a hazard to the galaxy. You know, if they're just reusing the resources that are available to them.
A whole fleet of chainsaw ships, I can't get over that.
It's like, I'm gonna get you.
Alright, just so we don't go into full-on blow-by-blow commentary, what are some other, like, shmups you've enjoyed over the years, mate? We are a PC-centric series, but you can do console as well if that'll be easy for you.
It would make it very much easier, so thank you very much for a start.
Okay.
So my shoot-'em-up beginnings came from R-Type on the Sega Master System, and that was my very first taste of what would be a series that I come to very much enjoy, even though I'm not necessarily 100% fantastic at it. Eventually I got to the other R-Type games, so you have R-Type 3 on the Super Nintendo, R-Type Delta on the PlayStation 1, and then I had R-Type Final on the PlayStation 2, which was the last foray as far as R-Type's concerned. And then later in my teen years, I discovered the Gradius series, because of course I never really had a original NES, so I kind of missed out on the early Gradius games in particular.
Right.
So I got the chance to play through Gradius 3, and also I picked up Gradius 5 on the PlayStation 2. As far as I'm concerned, it is probably one of the most challenging shmups I have ever played, and this is coming from a guy who's played some of the Toho and Ikaruga games as well, which... there you go, I've also played those as well. Gradius 5 is just unrelentingly tough, but it is so rewarding when you actually get shit done in that game.
I gotta say, I guess when it comes to shooting types of games, it would either be like FPS or third-person shooter or rail shooters that I tend to like go more for. Like, you know, Star Fox 64, House of the Dead, Time Crisis, stuff like that.
Oh, I love me a bit of Time Crisis. Who can forget Wild Dog?
Oh, yeah.
He just like shows up in every game, even though he may not necessarily need to be there. It's just like, yep, I'm here. It's a Time Crisis game.
Okay, I think we should take the Devourer of Stars seriously.
Yeah, and you can tell that he wants to be taken seriously as well, because the boss music has actually changed, and it's a lot heavier, so to speak. And this guy is pretty much a aircraft carrier, so as well as all these bullets, he is constantly shooting out ships at you as well, which of course shoot their own bullets and try to sort of crash into you, much like the Jem'Hadar of Star Trek fame. And as well as that, he's also got these shields as well, which you have to punch through, so hitting this guy is a chore, especially if you want to try and get hit as infrequently as possible. You want to keep taking on those ships as soon as they appear, but at the same time you don't want to ignore the fact that there's this big fucking generating ships with laser beams and God knows what else.
Jesus
it's a very
Christ.
stressful time, to say the least. And this was my first time fighting this boss as well, so I'm pretty much improvising as much as I can here. Some of those attacks, you just think, how the hell do I dodge that? And it's usually those sort of things that you kind of have to go through multiple runs just to kind of figure it out. Because eventually you see, oh, I see where this gap is, I'll know that for next time now. But, of course, you have to get there again. Which is where the, base of most shmups come from. You kind of... It's a bit of trial and error. You kind of find out, okay, this boss kind of killed me in this pattern, and I can now see where I need to dodge it.
Indeed.
Except where Steredenn separates itself is that you don't necessarily have that luxury when you're actually getting to the bosses. Because, of course, everything is random. So you kind of got to rely on your own skills to kind of act on the fly. Which is where I think Steredenn holds a lot more replay value compared to R-Type, Gradius, Ikaruga, Toho, and all those sort of things are concerned, because you're not going to get the same experience every single time, even though the bosses generally have the same patterns. A lot of the shoot-'em-up games is generally the challenge is getting to the boss as opposed to the boss itself, because the boss acts like more of a puzzle.
Oh my god. Oh my fucking god!
Quick, find the explosive asteroids! Oh, I got so hype over that last bit, but I was just like, oh god, there are so many enemies I don't even know what they do, and I'm getting my ass kicked.
Yeah, I can see, like, if I could read your ship's patterns, unpredictability is the word that would come to mind.
I don't know, the word I would use is, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit! That was pretty much me for, like, the entire remainder of, like, this 2-minute period. Because there were enemies I hadn't seen before, and more to the point, they're just chucking enemies every which way at you. So hypo.
Oh my god. My little heart can't take it. In fact, I didn't want to bring this up because you were on a bit of a spiel, but my fucking, like, screen froze when the previous boss was firing everything at once, and it kept playing normally. It was just the screen was frozen on a complete rainbow of colours.
That must have looked pretty awesome from where you were sitting, although not necessarily the most convenient. Although, that being said, a lot of these enemies may have been a lot easier if I had found the enhancement that allows me to break through shields easier. But
yeah, you think?
You take what you're given. You can't always prepare for every situation, so you may be strong in some areas, but there'll be some situations that you're just not properly equipped for, and that kind of falls on you to try and make as best of a bad situation as you can.
Indeed.
Because, of course, the power-ups that you get at the end of each boss are completely random as well, but generally you get a choice of multiple different things. So if you want, like, a buff to your bullets, you generally find something like that there. Or if you just want to go for high scores and increase your score, that option's available to you as well.
Alright, so we're coming to the end of Starid-N, mate. Give it a thing out of 10 and words to that effect. Go.
9.5 out of 10, only because maybe it's a bit too balls to the walls hard, but then again I'm a bit of a noob at this point, and I imagine that will soon subside when I played this game enough, which will probably be quite a lot, because I do love this game. It has everything I could possibly want. Shmups, replayability, and kick-ass music.
Oh, yes.
Pretty much ticks all 3 boxes as far as I'm concerned.
I think we've flown past like 2 Earths at this point.
Well, you know, I imagine at this point they've explored a lot of the galaxy and there are a lot of Earth-like planets, as it were, so I suppose that's a convenient excuse to use in this case.
Oh my god, it's getting a little bit intense here. I don't even know if you're going to survive, and no.
Tune in next time for the next few batches of NTom and Volk's Spotted PC.